Welcome everyone, back to League of History, and to Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Obviously, spoilers are ahead, we are finishing up Case 4 of the first game, but in the ongoing quest, since there's a lot of new people here, the ongoing quest of the game is to explore first, the Victorianisms, right? I use, the term medievalism, or Umberto Eco called it neo-medievalism, but regardless, the idea of a received Middle Ages, that is this very aesthetic, superficial thing. I use this, I think there's also a Victorianism derived from mostly Sherlock Holmes, but also steampunk going on in this game. And so we're exploring that and trying to answer the extremely difficult to answer question of what year is it? It's shockingly difficult. We get a whole bunch of information in Game 2, Case 3 that helps us not at all. But that is kind of the ongoing historical question going on here. Otherwise, we're just having a really chill time watching Soseki Natsume be accused of murder in very questionable ways. Alright, Kyra. Have a good time. As to why Sherlock Holmes specifically is here, yes. In the Japanese version, his name is Sherlock Holmes. But, English copyright is wild. And so we have Sherlock Holmes. And honestly, it being Sherlock Holmes makes it significantly better in my view, because it lets him be goofy, right? I mean, I think Sherlock Holmes is allowed to be goofy in a way that we don't really allow Sherlock Holmes to be. Because he's already a parody, right? When Sherlock Holmes shows up in the Arsène Lupin books, he's already a parody of Sherlock Holmes. And being a parody means he's allowed to be funny. And that means he's allowed to be just ridiculous in this game, because it is a parody turned up to 11. And I'm very here for it. I don't think we'll be seeing a whole lot of him in this stream, just because we're in the middle of trial, but that means we get to see more vampires. Right, we get to see our Victorian vampires, and that is half the point. I have considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury, and I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. If you missed the previous stream, do you know that we got rolled, we found some contradictions, we thought we were making progress in proving that Soseki Natsume did not in fact do a murder, and then we got rolled again. So now we're trying to persuade the jury by virtue of contradictions in the evidence that maybe that they don't want to end the trial yet. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. Oh, it looked into the summation examination has never been a thing. Yeah, it is absolutely not a thing. While the game is oddly careful about being historical a lot of the time, in this case, they just wanted to integrate the jury into the kind of core mechanics of Ace Attorney, and this is what they came up with. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. Even if the one was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? How dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tiny bit of trouble. Kosek, welcome. You missed us talking about Twitter threads, and now we are rolling into Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Sorry, I'm just updating the stream info because I forgot to do that. So give me just a sec here. Hooray! Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Tippy-tip. Yes, considering more tangible arguments from all the members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. And moreover... Hey look, chalice speedrun percent accomplished. No one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. Nope, we just started the Ace Attorney stuff. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means I'm afraid that during this summation examination, it's essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. But how? What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman, and how? Those two details are all you need to provide. Simply give us a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking this might be hard. But Mr. Naruto, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. Yeah, no pressure then. I think he's taunting us, Blues. The help is coincidental. That's quite enough preamble. Proceed with the summation examination, please. I presume you are prepared, counsel? Oh, yes, my lord. Alright, Ryunosuke, focus your mind now. Smack! Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid. Or should I say, Mrs. Garrett. We have a book that disappeared from the Garrett's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the two. Yes, that's what we have to find. Using every technique I've learned in my short career so far. Whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Miss Garrett and how she reacts. Even to the things other people say. Hooray. That's the not subtle hint that there'll be a press.
Hold it!
But as we now know, there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? There's every possibility that the 4th book in fact belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was a dam, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said. That's not exactly how I put it, no. Yes, we took the sword with us. We have Cosmo's sword. Well, anyway, the point is the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Nipponese fella. Honestly, I can't see what all this palaver's about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I've nothing witty left to say. Kazuma's soul. The soul of Sword Boyfriend believes in us.
Hold it!
So, you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight on your face. But I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I'm a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see? Modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking. What do you say? Oh god. I mean, we were talking about, historical games making modern arguments? That sure is one. That sure is one. Like, could you get more modern than the attention span of a couple of seconds? Exactly, right? That is actually pretty modern thinking. And well, that's the thing, right, that conservative Victorians definitely complained about, usually in relation to the youth these days. That's definitely a thing that's been exacerbated throughout the age of Twitter. Something something Oscar discourse something. And not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated by overwhelmingly strong testimony. So despite one or two minor elements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. A modern, a metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know, so I'd be only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too. If only I could. Let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. Wolfie, say hi back. I'm glad you admitted rational there. I hate her, I hate her. Aww.
Hold it!
Hey, look. But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point in even having windows, huh? Counsel, you will kindly refrain from childish bickering. Oh, yeah, sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open, because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise.
Hold it!
But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love, isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garrett. Never you mind that. The point is, we were just having a jovial little dispute involving incendiary bombs. Nothing more. No. Blues. Juror number 4 is the perpetrator. I won't have any more of these suggestions that it was anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right, well, we'll see about that. What about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Garrett's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is.
Hold it!
Everyone's a himbo. Even the not himbos are himbos. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, it may be both, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day labourer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some reddies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus doesn't want to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. Yeah, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. How full? I wonder if Mr. Beat will have been dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Don't even go there, Mrs. Otto. There must be some way to jog his memory about this.
Hold it!
Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Ryanosuke. Of course not! It was an angel cake. To celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I must have done all my puff to blur them out, and I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but the candles were flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. It definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold, but how did you catch a cold from the fire? Oh, what a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave it did. I caught a terrible cold from it, put me in hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Nutmeg, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to put them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes, I don't need to necessarily find contradictions between their assertions, just a connection might do the trick. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. There we go. Alright, Bruce.
Objection!
The two juror statements clearly contradict one another. I do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again! I told you it wasn't me! Huh? What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from the fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garrett household, and Mr. Garrett had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke.
Oh my! Excuse me!
Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Chug tea! Chat. Tea. Drink it. Mrs. Garrett! Oh, dear, what is the meaning of this? How dare you imply I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court, so please, time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? I beg your pardon, what are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and the bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, alright then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. And that's a significant step forward, Mr. Narhado. You've managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrett's formal statement.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. What? Come on. They obviously do. Might have been open and was open are not the same thing. Fine. Fine. Be that way.
Objection!
There we go.
Hold it!
No. Fine. Seriously? Like, it's obviously what the problem is, right? Chat, do you agree? It's very obvious what the problems are and the game is just being dumb.
Hold it!
The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrett told us he had been reading. Well, I couldn't really say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw out to your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing that I could lay my hands on, so I threw it straight at him. I know you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as well you know. I really don't.
Oh boy.
I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it.
Excuse me.
Fine. We get to keep doing this. What is it, Joe, number 5? You know something? I remember what it was. The memory I blocked out. Ah. I was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all floating back. Hey, what are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrett, or the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago. I just got back home after work, like. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Huh? Alright, let's get up some chicken at the time. I can hardly get the words out, but I tell it straight. I've lost a day's wages, love. Next I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear, stuck in the wall next to me, dead about an inch deep. No words, just terror. I can smell it then, you know? That god-awful stench of the Thames. I'm sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their right, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. But no, Adam, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using the bow and the like. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the one thing, the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. Susato takes people down. Let's just be careful and press everyone real quick. Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you. Alright, she told me with it. I had a tidy edge on it, believe me. Still, little memories, isn't it? Not with that smile she threw me when we were recording. Since then, the list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There's a cup, a glass, a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, cooker, a bathtub. Your wife must be even beefier than you. I think they did it last week when she threw me right into the tubs. Still, she's not so bad when she's gone down. She's a little sweetheart, really. So happy for you. I want to know what I think. I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with in this country, brought by some clever lads who've been tossed in the Thames a few too many times by their wives. I was more concerned about the bathtub. That's a very interesting theory. What a terrible thought. On the face of it, this just statement sounds like a really extreme anecdote. But they might turn out to be an extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I might be able to use to make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Alright, let's try that.
Objection!
Let's try it, I believe. Clearly I have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Judge number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garrett's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrett household to the street below. Ah, what's that there? After all, Mrs. Garrett could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, Joan number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little upstart? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, Perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. I hear this in here, you Eastern gal. At the forming of the sherry, I demand a straight answer. You give us listing on about some other object make its way out of the house. But what? What is it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. Alright, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garrett household to the scene of the crime was... Journal number 4, Mrs. Garrett. What now? I must apologize in advance for this. But I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Ah, good lord, counsel. What on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrett was hurling anything she could at her husband, who had been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Ah, even my missus hasn't got a name like that. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand, but that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow the trial to end. Not right now. Oh my. Ah. Mrs. Garrett, your answer please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Nailed it. Apart from a bit of a nonsensical Ace Attorney logic to get there, we got there. My lord, I wish to change my decision. I'm a word after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I don't think it would be right for the trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny didn't mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. Pyromancy. We did it. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruto. Now, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial will continue. I was wondering when the Victorian feminine painting spell was going to happen. Yeah. Admittedly, to be fair, in this case, it's part of the long tradition of breakdowns, right? Not the only one to have, not the first nor last Ace Attorney, witness, perpetrator, victim to have a breakdown. Right, and have a breakdown that results in fainting. I mean, they've done that a lot. So, chalking this up as to argument about quote-unquote hysteria and Victorian bogus sensibilities versus an Ace Attorney trope, I'm not sure terribly holds water, but they definitely intersect in this case. And now time for us to get just rolled again by Van Zieks. Now then, Lord Van Zieks, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? By smashing a glass. Come on, yeet the bottle, please. This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Oh, he's going to take a drink first. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. Yee! But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zieks, my friends have just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must familiarize yourself better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? Should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garrett household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Garrett household to the scene is yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards, that's around 14 meters. 14 meters? Oh. That's a little farther than I'd imagined. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having potential significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the household, travelled some 15 yards, found on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the class victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. The prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Mr. Zotto, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea of fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leanings. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, Judge number 4, Miss Joan Garrett must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive! Cross-examination of a juror? And Random 2187, thank you for the follow just now. Order. Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. Yeah, well, if you'd stop calling witnesses to the jury stand, then maybe this wouldn't be a problem, Judge. And unnecessary. Morton Zeeks. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth to it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have thrown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume that they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Nah. Yes, sir. Constable Rowley be reporting for duty, sir. Well. Good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you. But no more. Rowley, my hero, you make me swoon. God, they still make me sick. A week later, they still just... appalling. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir! The judge does not get to actually reject the calling of a valid witness. But this is Ace Attorney, and so yes he can. Don't question it, we're going to be fine. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett. Believe me, a London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garrett houses are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it. I didn't leave the scene to go and fetch help, but I trust you Rowley was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for 1 moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. He fell asleep! How is that not taking your eyes off it? Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Oh, yes, sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You can't excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir! Sorry, but... What exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you. You cannot use your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course. Sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruto. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's room. Alright, I'll try. I feel like the canon has to be relevant. The canon is shockingly not relevant. So, the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. Like this. But as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see? I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book and knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clouded against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see the problem then? Good. Your education in windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered, something we've discounted already. But that can't be! Did you see, Roly? The young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw him, he crumbled before me. Oh, Roly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. My lord. Oh, good. Another desperate situation.
Hold it!
Press everything! How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. As the Nell founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. To patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man is what the job's all about. That's why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you that Bobby's good for his word. Well, rubbing my tired eyes admittedly, sir. Oh, Rosie, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Roly. Oh, Roly. They are... No, none of this is what I meant. How can... I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett? Ah, I see, sir. You should have said so earlier, sir. I assumed it was obvious? Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time. Absolutely, sir. I will answer to the fullest of my abilities, sir. A surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. Before we get to the start, just one thing. Yes? I very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard, so to take back some tales of us London Bobbies at how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet, I've only just arrived here. But sir, I'd like to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to go through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you, I'll try. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. When a crime is discovered on the beat, the policeman must assist with the initial investigations and help detectives. Okay. It's the stars in their eyes that make their displays so sickening, I think. Yeah.
Hold it!
Yeah. It is cute. It is mostly funny because they are so different from everyone else in this case. By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. I just like to allow a bit of air through the house, you see, so they're restricted as to how much they open. And therefore anything thrown out of the window from inside the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here is the location where objects would have fallen. Yes, directly opposite the scene of the crime on the other side of the rather wide road. It would have been so hard for someone to mention this top-hinged casement thing before. Well, I have another question for you, Constable. How will that be, sir? How do you even know? Well, do you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry. You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. We were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rolly's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that's Street Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rolly's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat! Huh? Yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the documents of the Garrett household yesterday. That house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting its close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garrett household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garrett's house? Yes, ma'am. No, that other road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the window had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we would never have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But that's the life of a Bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are Bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rayleigh for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pat, my love. That must be it. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll take care of it immediately. The case file's information has been updated in the court record. And now it's my turn, I think.
Hold it!
But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Wait, that was a thought. Is Susato reading his mind? Yes. Susato-san can canonically, along with, and actually basically everyone in the game, can read Ryunosuke's thoughts, because apparently he is so bad at keeping a straight face that he just immediately gives away everything he thinks by glancing around extremely suspiciously all the time. Sorry? The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to answer the question? If a flaming book had crawled across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. But if really being inspected, I would have said 3 times at least. Of course, with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. Our chosen night sky in London is starless, sir. Certainly seems like the type of truth. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her.
Hold it!
Just keep straight face on that nose while I got ticker tape across your forehead with all your thoughts. Yeah. And this dude with another tier 1 gifted sub to Kosak. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been on Riley's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box on every beat. So, Riley told me the way, only I sort of got a little lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching to me. Can we get a shook in the chat? Because Lord, we need a shook in the chat. Oh, to be in love so desperately. Oh, Pat. Oh, Pat. Oh, really? Oh, please. So, I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes, but like I said, my brother was at the scene the whole time making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but a true Bobby is never really off duty, sir.
Hold it!
Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. Eyes open wide open the entire time, never looked away for a second. Then also approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. I can swear that to that on the yard's honor, sir. Really, that seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir. Strange, sir. Seems altogether regular for me. This burnt copy of the Lion's Pride was originally in the Garrett household. So the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Aha! Could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? Since you can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, the book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something with the statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her bag, how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something? Please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. Well, I wasn't really, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. Good night, Dildrum. Have a good time. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, she's going to give us more testimony. Yes, Mrs. Beat, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that! That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but mine really won't. Duly noted, Miss Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? Yes!
Hold it!
Please. Mrs. Beat, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw what I did. That evening, I saw it clearly. The little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. Oh, very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction. Oh, yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I make arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross.
Excuse me!
Constable Beat, is there a problem? No, sir. No problem, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Well, in a way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering that the same thing happened that evening is all. You mean Mrs. B lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine. She's gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. Thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone a good 15. Oh, Rolly, you're such a tease. The reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly's so romantic. He saved up for it with farthing and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I forgot all about it just now. Are you, my darling? Yes. But that was just between us. Not talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Ah. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Miss Beat about the bouquet. Miss Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while.
Hold it!
You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. I was so upset. When I ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on? Yes! I came back to the scene together with the constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again. The funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, there was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you needed reminding, Mrs. B, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling to me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. That's right. Silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. No, I'm going to blame the bouquet this time. I can't think how it got there. I really can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from the one side of Briar Road to the opposite. Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is, I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. The beautiful rose really brought me the change from the gutter he spent so long collecting. By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this sorry, solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Riley bought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Robert Ziggs, where did you come by the flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garrett household. In front of the Garrett's house? But it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be no relevant to the case since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Can I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure, this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. Perfect. But it's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial. Do you hear me? I want it back. Good grief. Rest assured, I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Pete. Well, let's take a look at it, eh? It is rather sad. An English rose, it's such a beautiful flower. Oh, this is a rose, is it? I've never seen one before. Do you not take an interest in flowers, Mr. Naruto? I wouldn't say that exactly. I did know 3 types at least. Gosh, 3? Yes. Plum blossom, peach blossom, and cherry blossom. Perhaps you should consider branching out, learning some that aren't fruit tree based, for example. It's very stylish paper the file's wrapped in, isn't it? It's just an old newspaper, Mr. Naruto. Oh, I suppose it's because I'm not used to seeing the English print. It looks so exotic to me. Ah, I see. Is something wrong? Oh, no. I was just thinking about if you wrapped a stone-baked sweet potato in English newspaper. It might look like some sort of fancy cake. Suzato-san, you do love your cakes. Okay, but also a stone-baked sweet potato sounds excellent. Chat, I would eat that in a heartbeat. So... we've got some problems.
Hold it!
The question is, how do I actually piece this together in the way Ace Attorney wants? How do I piece this together in the way that Ace Attorney wishes for me to? Because I really don't want to, like, screw up. Right, because this is obviously contradiction. But there's, like, 2 layers of contradiction here. Right? Because clearly what's happened is they were in front of the victim when the flower... They were in front of the... Supposedly they were in front of the victim, and then Mrs. B dropped the flower bouquet, and then went off to a different place and got lost for 15 minutes. Came back, the bouquet was on the other side of the street. Additionally, we know that when Mrs. Garrett threw the book, it hit the window pane and dropped straight down. Right? It must have done. 1 down, which was at the same location the bouquet was. And not the location where the body is. So... Let me just make a small note here. There. This way, if we screw up, we're gonna be okay.
Objection!
Well, we got it right on the first try. You claim, Constable Beat, that there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene. But that cannot be. Well, what do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby. Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry blossom can be so described, no doubt it was blown in the wind across the street, back into the gutter where it belonged.
Objection!
Meager? But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore to that on Scotland Yard's honour. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with the case. That's why Relly didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way round. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garrett's book. Mr. Garrett's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane on the casement window and landed here, on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here, on the opposite side of the road, in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped there, here, at the scene of the crime, on the east side of the street. But in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road, in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's household. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Relly's done something wrong. Don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says, whittering on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking is what it is. Oh good, Mrs. Garrett's come round. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garrett, but deliberately meddling with the scene of the crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it for a very subtle but compelling reason. Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend, who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is somebody who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person. Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying was responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime?
Take that!
Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rolly Beat, it was you. What? A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard? What nonsense! Why might Rolly do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. Nobody works more tirelessly for the people of London. Mrs. Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes they were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. What about the Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it. If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. How? And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Well. First you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim the crime scene was tampered with. There's only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime. To hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide? Doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering. And until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruto, have you managed to solve this mystery? Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need not point out that your reputation as a lawyer will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering. Yes, my lord. Constable B's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide where the victim fell to the ground. That is what this Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What? Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know. That's certainly what everyone has been led to believe. But in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all. What? Come on, he's got all that wine for you to throw at him, Blues. I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel. If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponese friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening? Obviously right there. But that's... on the opposite side of the road? I don't understand. On the evening in question, Mr. Garrett's book fell directly down from the open window above. And your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself. Good gracious!
Objection!
Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has had. But these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place. That's right, I saw it with my own eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog on the ground when he saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid. That was actually on the west side of Briar Road. No, that's not true. It can't have been. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. During the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print. The victim himself, the 4 books. He moved everything in fact to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. Extraordinary. The constable overlooked one thing. What did he overlook? The bouquet, I presume? Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Well, Forensic said it wasn't noticed until morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light. Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously. Which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that night. How do you respond, Constable Rowley Beat? Very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important? Rowley, it isn't true, is it? What the lawyer said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know. I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night. Everything come out. Everything exposed. RIP! Only it seems it wasn't a dream at all. Good golly! Ben Zeeks is having a very bad day now. Order! What on earth is the meaning of all this? Oh, Rowley, why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse it's a criminal offense, isn't it? Wishing the victim dead should be one, too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London Town. I can't say, sir. What? I really am ever so sorry about all this, for damaging the Yard's reputation, for everything. I have a possible explanation. For why on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason. What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman. And yet, Lord Van Zeeks, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matters thus far. Yeah. I believe it will be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defense, if you please. Yes, my lord. Now then, I think you'd better show us some evidence. At once, my lord. England, Japan, it makes no difference where you come from. Human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feeling behind this man's actions.
Take that!
Judge is based for once in his life. The Ace Attorney Judge has had a moment of being utterly based. I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land. I've only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I've learned that though honourable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on his beat in all kinds of ways, there's no doubt that the young bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet, my lord. Oh yes, it was our very first wedding anniversary. Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift to his wife. I was so looking forward to taking her out for her celebratory meal. When he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw the shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of him. Was this Van Zeeks or was this Renowski? I don't remember. What must have gone through the man's mind? But sir, just on one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. B puts up with a lot with being married to a bobby like me, just to show my dear wife how much I care. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend to me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Aha! Constable Beat. Is that not the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day? Yes. Everything you said, it's alright. So, that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat. Oh. Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Good gracious, Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done? It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over to the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight of all nights? Why? It's a girl's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then when I opened my mouth to speak, it came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat tonight, Pat. You'll have to get to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Mearsham Street and then... Susato's about to cry. Pat's also about to cry. Rolly is crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted, just that one night, to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly, just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. And so you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street, the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighbouring beat's care. You see, I thought... Well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see. I beg your pardon. Oh, of course he did. Otherwise, my Rolly would never have left the pool on the freezing cold pavement. Ah, I see your meaning now. But God got me back for my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. Should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Rolly. And can you tell us this, Constable? How many books did you move from the one side of the road to the other in total? 4 it was. Yes, sir. Definitely 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Nuttimer, and the 4th, in the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garrett household, of course. But what made you place the book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly about, I mean. Oh, well, so that's because that's how I found it. How you found it? What do you mean? Well, we first ran over to the scene. The victim was already holding the book, so when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh yes, sir, no doubt about it, sir. Interesting. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it. I thought. Couldn't see the harm, really. You think moving a doll over the road would make a jot of difference? I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord. Yes, Lord Panzix. I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir! Mr. Prosecutor, sir, what will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always mooning at him for coming home late. Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. Alright then, my love. One last thing, Constable. Sir? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson into your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir. You mean to say... Leave now. This trial is not over yet. Sir! Amit, I have not heard any news. What's up? Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused, Mr. Sosuke Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed the crime. Rolled. Love to see it, Amit. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Vanzix, is this true? Very well. Name the person if you will, and if further investigation is warranted, the prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again, my assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. John Garrett. Me? Oh, dearie me. That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garrett, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garrett. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited. To clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband and when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open-hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you this one more time, Mrs. Garrett. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? Oh. I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? Anyway, the man over there and all the regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, did he? Conveniently.
Objection!
Yes. No, I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4. Oh, make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madame, let the truth come out. Well, as a common or garden knife, could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garrett? Now, you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. Couldn't bear the thought that I didn't injure someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So, yes, I want evidence. See hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife, if that's what you think. Come on now, chop chop, do your worst. Well, Miss Nada, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. A funny story, you can prove things through testimony, not just evidence. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Hanzix. I'm going to have to testify. Yes, juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed, truth of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. Oh, dearie me. So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garrett. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. Zeke's really just so done with everyone's bullshit. I'm here, in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Zeke's, I'm telling you, that Zeke's gets better. Witness, state your name and occupation. Yes, my name is John Garrett, and I'm a juror and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has assigned your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madame? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh dear me. Train up, Jerry. Nothing to worry about now. Oh, I didn't know you were here, John. Was only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Well, I think I ought to testify as well, don't you? What about your knee, dear? Don't you worry about that, I hardly noticed it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John. I presume you are Mr. John Garrett? Yes, sir. Former second lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Lead my fair share of action, and I live the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Ah, well, yes. Quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. calling a juror to witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. Quite. Yes, indeed. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked the counselor over and set fire to the carpet. Soon after that, I went and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of noise about the place, can't find out if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. The only thing when the victim back really was one of us. You'll have a job proving it, I think. Oh, we're so good at our job, aren't we? Sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The corner's on the op, sir. I had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. We almost have the enemy that keeps shelling us for another minute, we'd have been terraced. Of course, veteran such as myself, only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of the jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Yes, Garrett is from a Sherlock Holmes story, that of the 3 Garretts, quite helpfully. But the marital quarrel is over the confusion of a John and a James, a reference to Conan Doyle presumably not giving a shit about John Watson's first name. The Zeeks may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. One more cross-examination. Once again, press everything. I believe it was a love letter. The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it's also because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garrett. A rather passionate note, in fact, but Mrs. Garrett found the note discovering her husband's little secret, and she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face through it too. What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. I say, well, just as I can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it all up. Besides, half of it was wide of the mark anyway. A likely story. These waters run very deep. What transpired next after these multiple blows to the face? I relate to Van Zeeks now. Oh, isn't it terrible? Hold it! Isn't it a terrible state of affairs that Van Zeeks' complete doneness with everyone else having -2 brain cells is the most relatable thing in the game? The fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. That's why there was some bathwater around that evening, so I sloshed that back to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in. Well, this is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street where the water main isn't connected. I have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see? The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night, although that little mustache Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all of his income to buy books. Well, either way, the point is I'll be able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Hold it! Even though the room was on fire, as far as I was concerned at the time, I was more important to extinguish by anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How does she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day? Mostly, I don't recall, but I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge, a napkin.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garrett. Don't shoot. Sorry. I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance now. Just that the barrage of projectiles the only thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the firepower I seem to recall. Ouch. And the women's ladies and cat. Ah! Good grief, woman, we're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dear me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? Honestly, John, I never would have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened? Your pipe, sir. Ah, this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her source projectiles she did, yes. When I picked the thing up, it was broken in two. I like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see, your pipe was broken. Never would have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Oh, I have managed to bandage the thing up for now. You all want to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what I should make of this account. The defense believes Mr. Gadget's remark just now to be of great significance. This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Nice one. In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Huh? Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me. There you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady. Very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruto. I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Suzato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. As you say. Well, gee, there's a chip mark in it. There's a small nugget of the bowl here, look. It appears to have been made relatively recently. See how there are little scrapes and dents all over it? It's clearly a well-loved pipe. Yes, you're right. It seems to me recently that being well-loved deals hand in hand with, getting some battle scars. This particular nick is catching my eye, though, because it's clearly new. Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yes, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looks to be the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. It looks to be in a solid state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason it feels slightly ominous to me. I was trying to shout out a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garrett's dressing gown. I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garrett, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that or he can't afford to replace it. Well, given that pipes are not expensive, probably the former. Especially since this isn't an expensive pipe. And it's a Sherlock Holmes reference, because this is the classic, Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes pipe shape. It's not actually the pipe in the oldest depictions of the stories, those are all straight pipes, but this, bent pipe shape is kind of stereotypical Sherlock Holmes. Everyone's very dumb in this case, Escudo. I don't know what to tell you. This is the tiny piece of metal we found at the chamber of Mr. Garret's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade of something. The tip of a blade? Is something wrong, Mr. Naruto? I don't really know. There's just something niggling me, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Perhaps in that case it would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again? Yeah. Fine. Unfold the knife. Hey, look. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruto, just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. Wait, part of it is missing? I could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this? Oh, that's the tiny fragment of metal we found inside Mr. Garrett's pipe. Yes, and just maybe... Oh my, it's a perfect fit! Somehow I just knew it. Okay. Has it been updated? Has it been updated? Yes, it has. Perfect. Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garrett. Now we're going to return to the crux of the matter. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Well... about that. I've got terrible news for you. Mr. Garrett, can I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't say a bally thing. You can't? You just called me dead-eye dead back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I wrote that I'll be from a D and P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does, dear me. It's rather weary being asked about every other letter and every other word. You must be very dizzy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of the blade. What may appear first to just be a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garrett's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it's some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. Oh, poor Mr. Garrett is burned through his bathrobe. You appear rather confident about extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence, compared with this fragment of metal, allegedly reveals the truth of this entire case?
Take that!
This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you'll see that there is a small piece of the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior knives sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. Why this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim. No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garrett's pipe. Good grief. More Van Zeeks? I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh. Order! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So, Van Zeeks has figured it out, has he? Counsel, let's make this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is, when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garrett's knife? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. I had everything in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked to clear up with one of the soft projectiles. She did, yes. I would never been sent flying unless I was hit by something pretty solid. Dearie me. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garrett flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garrett, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off. Of course. Good lord. Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garrett's pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1. And yet, there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out of the open window. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garrett's household, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear, no!
Objection!
Is it common phrase during dead manslaughter cases? Absolutely not. There are very few of them. Usually it's murder. It will go back to being murder very soon. A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument. Sorry? But after all, it is just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see... Boot! Is spoiled by an insurmountable inconsistency. An insurmountable... What?! Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with a knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... Ah! Ow! That's right, you silly little man! Now, Jerry, old thing, what are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself into the victim's back. Gah! Order! Well, right, you see, that's exactly right. The knife had fallen on her from above, and would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, He's lost for words. Anyway, I never liked this theory in the first place. I don't know though, what really did happen? Come on, this one's easy. I would appear that the plans have made a rather spectacular blunder. The theory has even one inconsistency. It cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. Oh, come on! This one's easy! We were so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. Now the way has been locked completely by just one simple inconsistency. Well, in other words, we simply have to eliminate that one inconsistency and the theory will stand. Mrs. Otto! You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all, and your mind went blank. But the theory path you're on is indeed correct, and the way will present itself. The key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. Seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed. How much alcohol is in that wine Zeeks is drinking? Yes. Look, he's mostly got it for eating, so we're not done. So it's not actually, he's not actually getting drunk, because he's not even getting a simple before he has to eat it. Means I need to shut in my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes! If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way it could have hit her in the middle of the back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There's one piece of the evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. That can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness, utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is...
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene. This is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book. Is that not Mr. Garrett's book? Yes, but to understand its significance we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. The photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all now know, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. Quite so. The man was also transplanting the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true, however, as part of his testimony, Constable Beach made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. The music slaps. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When I first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own volition. Clearly, that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. I don't bring her attack with a knife, I don't imagine she'd be up and doing much of anything. So, the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? By Jingo! I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh, dear me. We know that the book fell from the top pavement of the Garrett household onto the pavement below. At precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment. The young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw. Yes, Mrs. Garrett, what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I can't really imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes! That is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens! And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing this guy, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, the woman was still bent over picking up the book. The next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. And at the same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Well, I never. It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor, in the dark and the fog. He didn't see the knife falling on her from above. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. So, I think that still gets a voluntary manslaughter charge? Or attempted voluntary manslaughter charge? Aggravated assault? Because the intention is clearly to injure by throwing sharp objects at people. The fact that someone unrelated to who the target was injured should not matter, certainly in the modern legal system, though I'm not an expert. My understanding is that it would not matter because injury was intended and injury was caused. So even though this wasn't murder, I think this still is an aggravated assault. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett? The very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. Perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Oh, poor Mrs. Garrett. No, she deserves this. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let the anger get the better of me. I threw that book. And I threw that knife as well. It's not manslaughter because the victim's not dead, right? Right, doesn't the victim have to actually die for it to be manslaughter? The victim's okay. She's just in a coma. John, dear. That's alright, I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry. Yeah. Top tier breakdown. Top tier breakdown animation. He tried. He tried. Norman Zeeks, what news of Mrs. Garrett? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events have left her in an especially flustered state. So, there we do get some high quality Victorian hystericism, right? Clearly, showing emotion and fainting at trauma is just hysterics that gets treated by going to the infirmary and having all sorts of dubious treatments. Wow, John Garrett yesterday fainting in exactly the same way is fine. Needs nothing. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There's no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, the cause could have easily been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange, but we've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. Oh, how wonderful! But when is out of danger, it seems? Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Hey, look! He's back. Yes! On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I'd like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture. I've been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it is me who should be begging your pardon. Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I'm sure that the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she'd been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me. Oh, poor Sasuke-san. His imagination really has got the better of him. Yes, poor man. So when it happened, the young one had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. And for that, I am truly sorry. Shoutouts to imperialism for being still the worst. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think, when they created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by the spirit and led to false conclusions, but thanks to Lord Van Zeeks and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, yes, my lord. In concluding the trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? Board member of the jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare that the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. The interview will be while she's out of action now, but I know what her decision would be. Would I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman?
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Here we go again.
Not guilty. Not guilty. Not guilty.
God, their not guilty voice lines are so mismatched. They're so mismatched for these characters. Very well, Mr. Sosuke Natsuma, I hereby pronounce you British Pyromancy. British Pyromancy. Let's go! Setting off fireworks inside a Gothic cathedral, I mean Bailey. And finally, Mr. Natsuma. Oh, yes, Lord Sir. You are now a free man once more, and I hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. May you never again be brought before me. Oh yes, sir, of course. My life. I swear I'll never step foot in the courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, consuls. Court is adjourned. Well, chat, I have terrible news for Sosuke Natsuma. I have terrible news for all of us, and who have to deal with more Sosuke Natsuma. Oh, locum! Wait, you mean me? Of course! Is there another locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, alas, I'm free, I'm free! Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Heady-hearty happiness, hurrah! Oh, I am pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. To be so hard just to say that then. Locum, you did it! You saved me from the brink! Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that! Lovely loyal locum lawyer. Yes? I mean, as I said before, I never got used to life in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that silly little hunchback. Oh dear, I was just only ahead, Mr. Natsuma. But, today, you locum lawyer gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those baffling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born!" God, the alliteration. He just keeps going. Oh, that was very flattering. I'm very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my friends back in Japan. An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work? Ah, there you are, my dear fellows! I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning. Oh, Mr. Schultz, what a pleasure to see you. I say I'm here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruto, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's just finished. What? No! Then my haste was in vain? Yeah, it's you, Herr Sholmes. Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Previous encounters taking place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or their prison cell. Still, I couldn't place the curious face in the light. Ace alliteration, if you will. Excellent. Phenomenal. Love it. Charming. This is all your fault, Herr Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I have you assure you I have placed you now. You're the fellow that banned that pure poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Oh. I should be taken to a hospital more urgently. I feel perhaps you would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. Some nameless punk just redeemed a compliment. I mean, there's so much good here. There's so much good here. But to pick one, with Sasuke Natsume, the fact that they're showing his poetic nature through alliteration is just an excellent choice. Right, they could have put everything in rhyme, they've done that with other characters. But putting it in alliteration is much more interesting as a localization choice. Firstly, a localization is archaic. Right, obviously Old English and some Middle English poetry does this, but there are alliterative trends through relatively late, and in some 19th century revivalist poetry. They're calling back to a romantic nationalism. And Natsume himself, when he's writing, deliberately tends to use archaic language in Japanese as part of this sort of broad critique of modernization and the Meiji period. So, using this older, poetic style, being an alliterative style instead of a rhyme-based style, is extremely excellent way of localizing that little trend in kind of how Natsume is writing, and in doing so makes him unbelievably animated and unique among the Ace Attorney characters, which is a double win. So, excellent. Also, yes, this is the Old Bailey, so Blues points out that the fancier renovation of the Old Bailey opened in 1902, providing us with yet another year in which the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles could occur in. We're racking up, I think, every available year that is remotely plausible right now. Sorry, fully built in 1902, but formally opened in 1907. Well, that gives us 2 different years! This isn't helpful! I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Priceless. Oh, I am sorry, really. But that was quite priceless. Poor Sasuke-san. Yes, he was dabbing. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And it would seem you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits and now by the Reaper. Love and Zeeks. I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. It will be alright, Mr. Natsume. Huh? If the Reapers appear to try and make trouble, I will protect you. Hiya! Wait, ow. With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan. Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh. This means we are in 1906, by the way, because Sasuke Natsume ends his study tour in, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's 1906, after having been in Great Britain for a total of 3 years. The game obviously is doing a bit of a scrunch. So, you know, it's already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors, learned so much about the wealth of literature and the city it has shaped. I realized that it was my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. This is very touching, Mr. Natsuma. Or, in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not it at all! Yeah, I need to look up the dates again. If someone could check those dates on the study tour, I was pretty sure it was around for 3 years, but they seem to have condensed it. Yeah. So if someone could check those dates for me, that would be awesome. The more I learn of literature, the more the strange feeling claws on my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. That turns into Wagahawa Nakata Aru. I'm gonna get Wagi. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san. Could be an interesting read. It is an interesting read. Do recommend. What about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruto? Sorry, what about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustache compatriot? What would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London. Not only now does it feel as though we finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated that we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Ow, the windowless room. I'll board the laughing windows and weather race up for with the floor, ceiling, and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit? Oh yes. Try to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. Well, think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Or you consider taking lodgings with me? Really? Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up in the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on a matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of? Oh, this is simply wonderful! What an honor to be invited to taking lodgings in the great detective's office's attic! I'm too overcome for words. So suggesting we look elsewhere is out then. Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsuma. I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you, and yes. Wonderful. We'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsuma. It shan't take long. Somebody's happy. Mrs. Hudson is not in the game. This is like the only reference to her we get. Welcome. I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsuma. It's been a privilege meeting you too. So shame I'm going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But welcome. We'll meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then I'll be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruto? Yes, Mr. Shons. I little doubt Mr. Natsuma will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Soseki-san's innocence successfully established, we roll Mr. Shons towards to be our new home, 221B Baker Street. She is given no physical description or first name by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. That is correct. She is truly just a name who occasionally does some stuff. So this is to be a new office, yes. Our office? I rather like the sound of that. Me too, it's simply wonderful, isn't it? I mean, this is a top-tier attic. In terms of attic spaces, this is phenomenal. I hope you can see this, customer. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellas, do you like the place? Ah, Mr. Shons. Yes, thank you so much. Also, he has another outfit. Look at that waistcoat. Look at this man with his waistcoat and his light purple button-down shirts. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it. Oh snap, he actually looks dapper. Good. I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. Well, as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives, we have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. No, he's not. You're not wrong, my name is you. Look at him. This man has style. Oh god, he looks charming. So, Mr. Naruto, how does it feel? To have your own office in the capital. It's very exciting, actually. Can't help wondering what adventures it brings us. And those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at these premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. Sorry? London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. The brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows. Shadows? What do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So, once again, Mr. Naruto. Welcome to London. He has an analytical gun that shoots various concoctive chemicals to better do forensic analysis on crime scenes. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke, but it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. What a phenomenal case. No, we don't need to save it. So next time we come back with Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, which I hope will be this coming Sunday, we're going to get started on The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. We'll talk about the book then, because the book is obviously important. But what a phenomenal case, what a phenomenal game, what an excellent introduction to like the first full-fledged case in Ace Attorney Chronicles. Next time, more Herlock Sholmes. The art is so good. Everything about this game is so good, guys. It's great. Anyway, we have truly had a phenomenal stream today. We covered a lot of ground. Make sure you check these. The squad's going to be split up, so interestingly, I'm going to probably edit the Greatest Attorney half of the VOD into the previous Ace Attorney stream, stitch them together into make Case 4 all one VOD. But make sure you do check out the other part of the stream for the fact that we canceled medievalist.net. You'd love to see it. Big thanks to our patrons. If you haven't yet, seriously do consider supporting it. There's some stuff I'm trying to do this summer that I could really use the support for. So if you have change to spare, donations are seriously really encouraged. All the support for the stream today has been wonderful to see. To all the new followers, welcome. I appreciate you. We'll be back on Thursday with Elden Ring. It's time. We doing this. I am so excited to join literally everyone else in streaming Elden Ring. I'm gonna install a photo mode so we can actually see some stuff, talk about some stuff. I'm not gonna be able to research everything, but that means if you see something historical in Elden Ring, please do shout it out on Thursday, because I will not catch everything, because there is so much. But we're gonna try and like spot some visual references, compare stuff, explore kind of how they're constructing the medievalism, and what that does for the world. You know, broad design stuff. Medievalism and game design are two consecutive passions. Otherwise, do make sure you've joined the Discord. Link is in chat right now. And consider following the stream, subscribing to the YouTube channel, all that jazz. We will catch you then. Until then, I hope you have a good rest of your week. And yeah, enjoy your evening, everyone. Bye-bye.